these spineless people, these spineless organizations who are so afraid to stand up against this woke agenda, this gender ideology that is just rotting within our country.
If you enjoyed that clip from the episode, you're really going to enjoy the conversation that we have with Kaitlynn Wheeler, an NCAA athlete who discusses her experiences in the NCAA with transgender men and women's sports and how she has become an advocate fighting to keep men out of women's spaces. She was there when Trump signed the order keeping men out of women's sports. I'm Gideon Askowitz, and this is 7 Minute Expert. Okay, Kaitlynn, welcome to the show. We're really excited to have you on. We're just going to try to learn a little bit about your advocacy, what made you get involved with the Riley Gaines Center, with speaking out about transgender men and women's spaces in general, and specifically how other people could get involved if they share your concerns. So without further ado, Kaitlynn, what made you get involved in speaking out against transgender men and women's sports?
Well, thank you so much, Gideon, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on. A little bit about me and how I got involved. I was a swimmer at the University of Kentucky, where I was teammates with Riley Gaines, which many people know that name. But we swam together. We swam similar events, trained together every single day, and had to compete against Leah Thomas, which that story is also very well known at the 2022 NCAA championships, where we not only were forced to compete against a male, but we were forced to change in the locker room with him. That was something that was humiliating. It was something we were not asked about prior to. We weren't forewarned. We weren't asked for our consent, and we weren't given another option. So that for me was an experience that kind of opened my eyes to start. But really, it didn't even take that for me to start speaking up, going through that myself. A year after that, my younger sister, who was 16 years old at the time, also a swimmer, she spoke up about men going and changing in the women's locker room at a YMCA. And because of that, she was kicked off of her swim team and banned from a YMCA of all places. So for me, that was pivotal.
That YMCA, Donald Trump's YMCA?
Yes, exactly. And every time I hear that song, I'm sorry, but I just grit my teeth. Because this is an organization, again, that claims to uphold Christian values. And by doing what they were doing, they were not doing that. And that was one of the things my sister told them. And she was pretty much laughed at and told that there was nothing they could do. She went to her coach, someone who is supposed to be someone you can come to in situations where you feel uncomfortable or feel unsafe. And she was met with the same response, that there was nothing that he could do. So really shame on the coach and shame on the YMCA. These spineless people, these spineless organizations who are so afraid to stand up against this woke agenda, this gender ideology that is just rotting within our country, that it took that experience. So not only was it me, but it was someone else in my family, my younger sister, who had to go through something similar to me for me to realize that this issue wasn't going away. I think I was naive to think that my experience was going to be the one-off and it would be resolved. But that's not what we've seen the past 3 years. That's why I started speaking up and sharing my story and hers. And that's why so many other women have had to speak up and share theirs, because it's happened to hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of women being exploited in locker rooms, sidelined on podiums, putting their safety being put on the line. We've seen women's teeth be knocked out in field hockey, or girls like Peyton McNabb who have gone up against a team that had a male player who spiked a ball and hit her right in the face during a volleyball match. I mean, this is just insane. And so to be there last week on Wednesday when President Trump signed that executive order, it was a sense of relief in some ways. I felt validated because for so many years we were made to feel as though our voices didn't matter, and that by using them we weren't going to accomplish anything. But it was all the affirmation that we needed, that our voices do matter, your voice matters, every young girl's rights and opportunities matter, and we're going to keep fighting until we know that those are fully protected. And obviously this is a great first step, but there's a lot more to go.
So bouncing off what you're saying, where do you see the next step? Is it talking with those Christian organizations?
Well, I obviously hope that this sets a great first precedent for those organizations, those independent organizations like YMCA's, Planet Fitnesses, these organizations that are going against reality and common sense by allowing men into their spaces. But because this is an executive order, it can be taken down just as quickly as it was put up by the next president, depending on who that is. And so we want to make sure that this is locked tight. We want to get this through all legislative branches. It's already been passed in the House, HR 28, but it hasn't been seen yet in the Senate. So we're relying on the Senate to pass that, and we're relying on Senate Majority Leader Thune to do that. Obviously, we're not sure if it will pass, but we think that is important for the American people to know who in these Democrats, who in these blue states, these elected officials, are they going to stand with women or are they not? I think it's important to have them on record in that fact. So obviously, there's a lot more to go, and I hope that these organizations in these states like Colorado, California, Maine, Minnesota, all of these states who have come out and say they're not going to comply with this executive order. Well, guess what? President Trump, he will hold to his word, and he will pull his federal funding for these federally funded institutions. I think promises made, promises kept. He's done and stuck to his word thus far. I don't think he's gonna falter from that now.
I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing in this space. So if you're a young girl or a young man in this country, be you're in a blue state, I live in New York, or you're in a red state, how do you get involved? How do you make this? How do you get involved in your advocacy? How do you get involved in the work, and what needs to be done in terms of that work in Congress to make that happen?
Well, I would just encourage people to get involved by educating themselves. Don't be afraid to have conversations within your circles. It doesn't have to be being an advocate or being someone who speaks common sense or truth. Doesn't mean you have to do it on this, broad stage. It's just about having conversations and speaking your mind, because we've gotten to a point in our society in America where people have become so afraid to speak truth. But we're going to change that now. We have seen that change since President Trump has stepped into office. I think the American people are desperate for truth to be spoken. That's what I've seen being on college campuses, working with the Riley Gaines Center, going to these groups and these student groups who are truly just desperate for truth, reality, common sense to be restored back into our country, into those, parents, those athletes, those brothers, those sisters. I would encourage them to go to our website, learn about what we're doing, and be supportive, be vocal. Don't be afraid to use your voice. Like I said, we were told that our voices simply didn't matter and we wouldn't make a difference. Well, look where we are. We're certainly making a difference now, and it's important to do so.
Thank you. I think it's really important. It's surprising, right? I'm sure you found also surprising how just a little bit of advocacy and a little bit of hard work and can-do attitude, and you can really make it quite far. You obviously made it to the executive order signing. So I want to thank you for your time, and we're going to include a link in the description for the Riley Gaines Center and for your social media as well. And I personally hope that you guys are very successful in helping get that issue passed in the Senate. And if I can help in any way, please reach out. And thank you all for joining this episode. And if you liked it, please subscribe, smash the like button. And again, thank you so much for the work you're doing. And again, this show aims to connect young conservatives with different organizations, different advocates, and to create a community where we can all learn from each other and work together to make this country great again. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you.